On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Roads to the North by Panopticon. To another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. I don't know what that was.
I don't know. You were doing a character. And
I was doing a character really quick.
It didn't quite go anywhere.
For no reason. And It's January. It's been a weird January so far. Normally we talk exclusively about black metal, but we've so far done two albums that are not really black metal.
Black metal adjacent.
Yeah, adjacent, close enough to it. This is the most black metal album we've talked about yet this month, and even so, it's still got plenty of other influences. But it's Panopticon. We know what to expect.
This is possibly the most bluegrass album we'll talk about all year.
All year. Yeah. Unless there's another Panopticon album that we talk about, it will almost certainly be the most bluegrass album we talk about.
Sure.
Although we have March and September to maybe just talk about a full-on whole-ass bluegrass album.
Maybe I'm going to bring some Flattened Scruggs. Maybe I can make that happen.
Maybe. We're talking about Panopticon's 2014 album Roads to the North because we haven't talked about it yet. It was one of the albums in the discography of Panopticon that I hadn't really given its fair shake beforehand. Like I listened through it once previously, maybe twice a while ago, and was like, that's fine. But it's one of those things where when I first discover a band, there's usually like one album that I'm really, really attached to. And then it takes me a while to sort of branch out. Like when I first started listening to like the Wonder Years, I was really, really attached to The Greatest Generation, and sort of branched out from there. And with Panopticon, when I first started listening to the band, it was with Autumn Eternal. I was really attached to that album and didn't really branch out a lot. And this was even since then, as I have like branched out more, this is one of the ones that I, for some reason, always skip over. I don't know why. I always like go back to Kentucky, or I'll listen to the newest one from well, not last year anymore, from 2021. I'll do that. But then I just skip over Roads to the North. I don't know why. And this is an album that should not be skipped over.
No, this is very good.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more a bit later on. First, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I mentioned to you earlier, I got chili in my bathroom sink. Yeah, I'm still working through that.
Because it was the bathroom was the best place to dispose of it.
Yeah, because it was a fuzzy bowl of chili from the back of my fridge.
Yes.
That it was delicious at the time, and then because I don't remember anything ever.
You didn't want to just throw it in the trash instead.
Well, yeah, because it was
too liquidy.
Right.
What was it? It was in like a crock.
Yeah, it was in like a crock with a lid.
I think what I would have done perhaps is
eaten it.
No, I probably would have just put it in the. I honestly probably would have just put it in the trash. Honestly,
really,
not the crock or anything. I probably would have just dumped it in the trash, and then almost certainly immediately taken the trash out.
Right. Yeah, my trash wasn't full.
Yeah, I think my apartment is messy enough where I can pretty easily find things to fill up the trash with to justify taking the trash out. Usually it's just a bunch of empty boxes. But if I look hard enough, there's always something that I can put in the trash. I don't have like dirty, rotten garbage all around. It's all, stable, dry garbage.
Shelf-stable dry garbage.
Shelf-stable garbage is what I have in my apartment.
What I should have done, because I actually have that drawer in my kitchen that's just grocery store bags. I could have just dumped it into one of those, tied it up,
just made sure it didn't have a hole in it or anything. Are people messaging on our D&D Discord?
Yeah, they are.
I have like all notifications turned off on my phone.
I don't know quite how to do all of that yet. I don't know how to do
you got
everything.
a new phone.
I got a 14. Yeah,
you got an iPhone 14.
But I talked about that already.
Yes, you did. Your
my soon-to-be son-in-law.
Yes, I was about to say newly minted son-in-law, but that was not the wedding you went to.
No, that was my sister's wedding.
Yes, but soon to be newly minted.
Right.
But
I had a weird moment there, by the way. I don't know if I told you this, but we're all doing photos. And, and we're like, hey, let's get one, just those two and me and OJ, because we had a fun adventure the last summer they were here. And it's like, we're all good friends. We're all good buddies. We have a thing, and so we all put our arms around each other. And my brother-in-law was in the middle. My sister was on the other side, and I was over here on the right. And I'm like, cool, yeah, we got a picture. And then I moved my arm down, and I actually grazed his ass. And I'm like, don't acknowledge that. We're not going to acknowledge that. We're just
an accident.
We're going to move on.
We'll move on.
Going to accept it as such.
And it's over now.
It's over now. We've moved past it.
That's funny. See, it's interesting for me with family pictures because I always end up standing in the middle. Both because, I guess I'm not entirely sure I'm the tallest. I think my dad and I are pretty much the same height. Mm-hmm. We're pretty much exactly the same height as far as I'm aware. We haven't like actually tested that out. My dad, is not getting any younger, so he perhaps has shrunk a bit.
Right. Sure. I know I have. Yeah. I've lost an inch.
You've lost an inch.
I'm an inch shorter than I used to be.
Yeah.
That's because of skateboarding.
I think you've told me that before.
Right. I have two discs that have...
You ate shit too many times.
Too many times? Yeah.
Or one too many times.
Yeah. And some of it was not eating shit. Some of it was just being a stupid 15-year-old.
That's kind of goes hand in hand when it comes to skateboarding.
Cool. You want to see? We don't have a half pipe, but we're going to do some of these bomb drops off your mom and dad's roof.
Oh, God. It's interesting that fucked up your back and not your knees. I mean, it can do both.
Yeah.
It can be both.
Knees aren't great either.
Yeah. But I didn't do any of that shit and my knees suck. I didn't do like any fucking sports at all and my knees are bad. I think honestly it is like that's probably why my knees are bad. It's because I didn't do any sports.
Right.
Like my oldest sister, her joints are bad because she did all the sports.
Right.
I think there
has to be a middle ground.
Yeah,
if there's a middle ground, you work, you get them lubed up enough.
Yeah, I think that's where I would be at if I exercised more.
Yeah, well, you have an exercise bike.
Yeah, I don't use it as much as I ought to lately because my fucking knees have been hurting, and I don't know. I keep on telling myself, all right, we're just going to get back to it.
Yes.
We're going to...
It might make your knees better.
It very well might. I don't know. It's been a little while, but I definitely need to get back onto it.
I haven't used my exercise bike either lately because it's cold out.
It's just a bike.
I use it for exercise.
It's like saying that I have a water kayak. I should...
or an airplane.
Have you used that one is, I mean, plane though does have other uses.
Sure, that's true.
When spelled that way.
Right.
This plane of existence.
Sure, where the wind goes sweeping down. Yeah.
That's a different word technically.
Right.
But it could be a tool that you use to make something flat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is weird that one is not spelled PLAIN because you're making something flat like a plane.
Exactly.
Fuck, English is stupid.
Or something with like no real features.
Yeah, that's plain.
Right.
But that one is spelled the same way as the geographic feature.
Right.
The woodworking tool should also be spelled that way because it's dumb.
You're making something flat.
It's English is stupid.
Or the act of being at play.
Okay, now you're stretching it. That's I was trying to think. I was about to say two things that I don't think are correct at all. I was going to say that's like now I fucking lost.
Not a homonym, not a homophone. Homophone, right?
That's a slant rhyme but for homophones,
right?
Basically,
sure.
Which I think is, you could just call that a slant rhyme because two words that sound. Is it technically rhyming if they're two words that do sound exactly the same but are spelled differently? Is that still technically rhyming in a poetic sense?
Yeah, you can employ poetic license in that way. I mean, that works.
Like there is a particular there's a Wonder Years song where Dan uses one WON and one ONE as a rhyme. And I know that's the lyric, but it still bothers me. It's like you just rhymed one with one, and I get it. They're two different words. It's fine, but there's still part of my brain that's like, come on.
Right.
But like, and that's my one gripe with the song, because otherwise I fucking adore that song. But it's Passing Through a Screen Door, which is the first song on Greatest Generation. But yeah, it's every single time it bothers me just a little bit. I have to convince myself to ignore it because it's technically there's nothing wrong with it.
Because it's two different words.
Yeah, they're two different words. He's fine. It's fine. Those are the words of somebody who's definitely not bothered by it. When you say it's fine, don't worry about it.
Fine.
It's fine.
Which is another word I love.
Fine.
Because it has so many definitions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fine. Like fine is, I think it is one of those words that is probably pretty annoying for people learning English.
Right.
Not in the sense that like people in other languages absolutely have their equivalent of that, where people, this word almost never means what it's supposed to mean. But like trying to explain to someone like, yeah, when someone says they're fine, it's almost certainly because they're not fine, but it means that they don't want to talk about it.
Or that may not be true as well. They may also be fine. Oh, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, they may actually be fine.
Right. Hey, do you want any more to eat? Do you hurt? Nah, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Fine.
I think the rule of thumb for whenever someone uses the word fine is then it's over with.
Right.
You don't ask any questions. You don't follow it up.
Yeah.
They say they're fine. You move on.
Right. Like when you go up and you ask someone, are you good looking at all? Baby, I'm fine.
Then we're done.
No more questions.
Done.
Yep,
no more questions.
That's it.
We're good to go. Unless they're very obviously not fine and are about to have a mental breakdown.
Then maybe.
Then follow up. But again, that doesn't require any more talking. That maybe just requires a knowing look and a hand on the shoulder.
Perhaps a hug.
Perhaps a hug. And but those things don't need words.
No.
You can just be silent.
Or perhaps if they've been ground up to like a dust, then they're very fine.
They're very fine. And even then, if someone's like, hey, what's the consistency of that material? Well, it's very fine.
Right.
No more explanation needed.
Exactly.
There's no more.
We're done.
Yep.
That's all it needed.
Yep. That's all it needed. Are there any other definitions of fine? If you did something bad, and someone you are charged money for it.
Sure. That's a fine.
Here's this fine. Well, it's over with.
Yeah, you're done. You paid the fine.
Pay the fine.
Yeah.
That's it. Nothing more to be said.
Or if you apologize to somebody and their response is
fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Fine.
They're put out. They're not okay with it, but they've moved on.
Exactly.
In that situation, it's not you that needs to move on.
It's them.
They have already moved on. I mean, you, I guess, still need to move on, but both parties in that situation have acknowledged that it's over with. I think this is a universal rule. This is a truth about the universe we have uncovered tonight.
As soon as we impose the word fine,
it's over.
It's over. We're done. Chapter 2.
Chapter is moving on.
Yeah.
English is a silly language.
It is a silly language.
Although all languages are pretty silly when you think about it. Isn't speech kind of silly? Just like we had this organ that developed for us to make for us as animals to yell at each other that we're horny or that we're scared.
Sure.
And then
we're hungry
and we use it to convey fucking meaning.
Right.
Well, that's silly. That's just dumb, isn't it?
Maybe that's what we need to get back to. We need to go
reserving vocalizations entirely for life and death situations.
Sure.
And mating.
Yes.
That's it.
So
that's all it's for.
Next time you're there, you're at a local bar. It's all quiet in there, but you just see someone attractive. You go and you yell as loud as you can in their face.
Come fuck this. And then they're going to go, danger. And both sides of the coin will have been revealed.
Right. There's no question that you know what sucks to say after that?
Fine.
Oh, exactly.
That's
where you say it.
Nothing further is required.
Exactly.
But there was something that came up. Oh, someone in a Discord chat asked whether it was pecan or pecan. Mm-hmm. And my response was just like, as far as I'm aware, either is fine. Mm-hmm. It really just depends on where you're from. And it's not, it's not a matter of, correct or incorrect. It's
matter of dialect.
Yeah, it's a matter of dialect.
Right.
That is so many things in any language, but in English as well, that I think people really need to wrap their fucking head around. Mm-hmm. I really, as a Midwesterner, which is by population an uncommon accent in the United States.
Sure.
Having to very few other parts of the country will people make fun of your accent to your face. Like I wouldn't do it to anybody, but I don't think I've seen a situation where two people who are strangers or maybe like distant acquaintances, like close friends will do that shit to each other all the time. They've earned that right. But like, I can never imagine someone from the Northeast meeting someone from the South for the first time and mocking their accent to their face, unless these are two giant assholes.
Right.
Like
I've done it.
I can't see these people do that to each other. But as a Midwesterner, specifically someone from like North Dakota or Minnesota or Wisconsin or something, you meet someone from some other far-flung part of the country and they will like mock your accent to your face.
Yep.
And if fucking like you talk wrong, it's like, no, we talk different. That's fucking language.
Yeah.
That's how it
changes.
works.
Yeah. Yep.
Dialects. That's all it is. The way we're saying it is correct for where we're from in the world. Mm-hmm. You don't, when someone speaks Spanish, you don't tell them that they're saying it fucking wrong. Right. No, it's a different language.
Right. I mean, I imagine that people from Spain and people from Mexico do sort of mock each other.
Perhaps.
To some extent.
But
kind of like people from
probably not to each other's faces, though.
French Canadians and French people do.
Yes, but they're giant assholes.
Yeah. Every last one of them.
Every last one of them. I think most people from other parts of Europe and other parts of Canada would agree with me.
Yeah. And I imagine French Canadians and French people would agree with you as well.
Exactly.
I told you what I did in Georgia that one time. Yeah,
I don't think so.
But
maybe
I was trying to get a hotel for my girlfriend at the time, and I were going to stay on Tybee Island.
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, and so I called ahead for reservations, like a civilized person does.
Yes.
And I called and said, "Hi, I'm looking for a room for two for tomorrow night at your hotel." And she says, "We have a big convention going on right now. We don't have any rooms open." Mm-hmm. And I went, "Okay."
Click.
Hello, same hotel. Hi there. I'd like 2 rooms for tomorrow night at your hotel. And she was like, smoking or non? Yeah, I figured as much.
You
Fuck you, Yankee. That's what that was.
Yep. Which, yeah, it'd be weird. For me, it would be weird to be called a Yankee.
Sure.
Just because I don't think of, like, North Dakota is not the North, right? Like,
right.
North Dakota didn't exist during the Civil War,
right.
which is what I associate with the term Yankee, even because I'm not from the Northeast,
right?
Where, you know, a Southerner today may still call someone from New England a Yankee,
right?
But outside of that context, you don't. If you're not from those parts of the country, it's like weird to hear, or like a British if a British person called me a Yankee, I'd get that because that's just a term they use for Americans in general.
Well, yeah, and they even shorten it.
It's a Yank.
Yeah, they just call us Yanks, which
bloody Yanks,
which could have other implications. I feel
it's the UK. I'm pretty sure
it does. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if it's probably intentional. Something that I heard about. Apparently, there was a soccer game.
Yeah.
Where when they went back to like the in studio coverage, you know, of the soccer game, someone had planted a phone in the studio. Like some YouTube prank group planted a phone in the studio, and this was on like BBC.
Yeah.
This was like association football or whatever.
Right. Soccer.
Yes, soccer. And someone had planted a phone in the studio. They called it and then blasted like porn audio through it. Live on the BBC. I haven't looked up anything about that of like what the people were streaming this live on YouTube, by the way, like
of course
of them like placing the call and whatnot. I do know the BBC does have rules about like at least on like their main 4 channels.
Right.
They have like pretty specific rules about like obscene and sexual content, where you're not even allowed to like reference it. Which is weird because past like they're much more liberal about the use of the word fuck,
right? Which
refers to that, but yeah, I don't know.
Right, I think maybe the first 3 not as much on BBC 4.
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, because BBC 4 is the comedy channel over there.
That's where you're gonna find like Mock the Week and
Taskmaster and whatnot. Not find Mock the Week anymore.
Oh, it's gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad. Fantastic show. And because of the way British copyright works, you can watch all the fucking all of it on YouTube.
In America.
Much. In America, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is specifically about the way like British TV copyright works. Maybe it's just BBC stuff since it's a nationalized broadcast service.
Perhaps.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
It's not private.
Yeah, because you don't see full episodes of like the BBC version of Ghosts or not the British version of Ghosts, not the BBC version, because I think Ghosts is on Dave or Sky. It's on one of their paid networks, right. I think.
What amounts to their color cable TV. Yes. Oh, speaking of ghosts, I got a new video game that I haven't started playing yet.
I'm gonna guess it's Ghost of Tsushima.
That's it. That's the one. It was on sale. There was a big sale in the store.
Yeah,
I bought it for like $20.
It's one of those things where I see people play it and I'm like, that looks amazing, and then I'm like, I don't have a PlayStation.
All right,
but. Yeah, it's one where if I had a PlayStation, I think I'd get around to it eventually. Although when I had opportunities when I did have a PlayStation, I had opportunities and I never got around to it. I also had opportunities to play Bloodborne and I never got around to it either.
I had that as well.
But yeah,
I was playing it wrong.
I'm not leveling up.
Right, not leveling up and and trying to fight every battle like an idiot.
At some point, I haven't really kept an eagle eye out for. I should like figure out some manner of network to find out when like PlayStation 5s are available Target did have a couple of PS5s at one point that our friend Matt texted me about, like, hey, there's PS5s at Target, but they were the version with the disc drive, which I don't really want or need because I don't have any PS4 games that.
See, I do. I need that.
I don't have any PS4 games or discs or anything like that. So I'd rather pay less money.
Right.
Because it'll be something that I don't need and won't use.
I perhaps have a connection for you and me.
A connection
in this particular regard. Somebody in the biz, as it were, or adjacent to the biz.
An inside man.
Bought a PS5 for $130.
Oh yeah, that you said you told me that was your soon to be son-in-law.
Now everybody knows.
No, because they know everyone's in on the secret.
Yeah, well,
you said it aloud last week. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty traded. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know that they'd be able to do that. That he would really know. I mean, I'm just saying that if anybody that I know knows, it'd be that guy. He probably doesn't. He got a very good deal on a trade in.
Yeah. I'll at some point here. I'm not in like a big hurry, or anything. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, that's available because I have, I haven't spent any of the cash that we got as our Christmas bonus.
I had to because all my credit cards expired at once, and I was buying Christmas gifts.
Yes.
And it was like, oh, well, this amounts to $295. I'm like, oh, none of my cards are working. Fuck.
I mean, traditionally, that's what a Christmas bonus is for.
Sure, it is. And that's what I did.
Yeah. So there you go. I'll just at some point, if I find a PS5 without the disc drive, I'll just be like, all right, quick visit to the ATM to pull out another $100 and here we go. But yeah, because they're $400.
Are they $400?
Yeah, the discless one is $400.
Oh, okay, right. The one with the disc is $500.
Disc drive is $500.
Yeah, because there are a couple of games that I've experienced now that I've gotten recently that are a bit herky-jerky on the PS4.
Yes. Yeah, someday. I don't know where I'm going to put the fucking thing because they're massive.
Right.
You'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'll find
suspend it from the ceiling.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good plan.
Speaking of suspended from the ceiling, the thing you told me yesterday has been just racking my brain. The information you imparted.
I was like, what are you talking about? So there is a concert happening in
3 hours from us.
In Grand Forks next Wednesday.
A week from today.
Which includes a couple of bands that you're kind of a fan of, that you kind of like a little bit.
Yeah, are you catching the tone in his fucking voice right now?
I was just scrolling Instagram and I saw like, oh, I wonder if OJ knows about that. He probably does. These are some of his favorite bands. It's
Anthrax,
Exodus, and Black Label Society.
Yeah.
And yeah, I saw that and was like, I should ask OJ if he knows about that. And you had no idea.
Yeah.
You had absolutely no idea.
I told my former neighbor. Now, her baby daddy used to be a guitar tech for, who was the guitar tech for? Who actually was on tour with both Anthrax and Black Label Society.
Okay.
She told me, and she's going to try to pull some strings and get her some tickets.
Okay.
The most generous, wonderful human being on the whole world, my former neighbor, Sarah.
The same one that helped you when you were stuck last month, right?
No,
different. No,
she wasn't home. Yeah, that was the one across the street.
Okay,
and then the one down, because I got stuck like 3 times.
You had a great bunch of former neighbors.
Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. I missed that neighborhood.
It'd
be weird if I hung out there now.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood. What happened? What happened?
I don't know.
What happened to Mr. Rogers?
It's Zombie Rogers.
Zombie Rogers. That's Mr. Rogers with a traumatic brain injury. That's terrible. On that note,
lobotomy Fred. That's what that is.
Oh no. Oh no. Did you ever watch not the Tom Hanks one, but the documentary?
Yeah, I did. Great.
I can't remember what that one was called. Was that one called Will You Be My Neighbor, or was...
I think that one was... I think that was the Will You Be My Neighbor. I didn't see the Tom Hanks one, but I actually saw the documentary on an airplane. I saw it on the way back from Vegas.
Yeah, I watched that as well, and I enjoyed it greatly.
I might have teared up once or twice.
Me too. And I didn't even really I didn't watch a lot of Mr. Rogers.
Well, no, you're too young,
kid. It was still on, like when I was at my babysitter's and what. Like it was constantly on PBS.
I suppose it was probably in rerun.
Yeah, there was always like syndicated reruns of like Mr. Rogers, and I think it was still current at the time, but like Bear in the Big Blue House.
Sure.
That sort of thing.
You ever watch Zoobly Zoo?
Which one was that?
That was the one where there was this kind of nerdy couple, and then there were these people like furries that lived there. It was a frog and an owl and a hippo.
Maybe. I don't know.
And they sang a lot.
My memories from that time are pretty hazy because I was 0 to 6 years old.
Sure, right. So you were drunk a lot.
Yeah, I was just absolutely blasted all the time on grain alcohol. What was? Do you know which one? What was the one with all the lions in it?
All the lions or the puppet lion was like it was a Jim Henson thing. I feel like it was.
Yeah, there was.
And they were in a library.
Yeah. Was it just called fucking Lion Library?
Might have been. It's distinctly possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember that one being on as well.
Sure.
I don't remember anything about these shows. I just have images of them.
Right.
And that's pretty much it.
See, a couple of these shows I had kind of ruined for me because when I used to live in Las Vegas when I was 8 and 9 years old.
Okay.
My mom was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so she went to work early and I got dropped off at this woman who would watch me before school. And then she would just drive me to school.
Yeah.
And so I remember watching these programs in the morning, and she was like over at her typewriter. I'm like, "What you writing?" Because I'm a curious dude. I want to know what's going on. She says, "Oh, I'm writing the story." And she told me the story, and it was the most gruesome horror story I had ever heard. It might have heard to this day. It was disgusting. It involved butchering dogs, and
it was lyrics to a Cannibal Corpse album.
I have to imagine that if I had given George Fisher this piece of paper, you'd go, "This is fucking gross, man.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, who kind of fucked up person wrote this?"
And she was like, "I'll just explain all this to this child."
Yeah, she did. I asked, and so, here's what's happening.
There is definitely a point where the idea of just like, well, you should explain things to kids like they're adults.
No, not
everything.
No, you can use language like that, to expand the vocabulary.
Yeah.
And sometimes the language is no.
Fine.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
Should we talk about Panopticon?
Roads to the North by Panopticon.
All right. Excellent.
So this album came out in 2014. This is, I actually don't know what number of album this technically is.
He's put out a lot of albums.
Yeah, he's definitely done a lot of work.
Yes.
So it's hard to, and like there's a bunch of it that is like only available on like Bandcamp these days, and it's some things are a little hard to track down, especially from the earliest days between like when the project started in, I want to say, I think the first album came out in 2009, but I think the project had been doing stuff since like 2006.
Sure.
But from the time when Austin got started on Panopticon to like the time that Kentucky came out, a lot of that stuff is EPs and splits and that sort of thing. So it's hard to figure out what is considered a full-length album, especially because so many of the songs tend to be so long that what may be intended to be an EP is the length of a full-length album from a different band. And it's a whole thing. But this is the album that came out after Kentucky. And there were a couple of EPs and splits in between. And sort of a further refinement and development of this of the sound that he had been working on since the project began.
Right.
But the sound that really was established with Kentucky being the very more obvious fusion, I guess. It's not quite the adjective that I was looking for there, but the more upfront kind of fusing of bluegrass and black metal, where
it's weird how well it goes together.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading a review that was talking about how like sort of the first reaction, a lot of people who don't know anything about Panopticon, or really at this point American black metal, because I think Panopticon, alongside like Wolves in the Throne Room and stuff, but really like even when you listen to like Wolves in the Throne Room, it still sounds pretty European. Panopticon sounds distinctly American.
Right. It's very American black metal.
And it is the bluegrass in that DNA that makes it that sound, because bluegrass is through and through American music.
Right.
It's, it is, kind of lost the thread there for a second, but, what they were saying about why it works and why it like makes sense, because people are like, this shouldn't work, but it does. It's like, no, it should work. It should work absolutely fine, because this is the same thing that has been going on in European black metal since the 90s. It's just, instead of incorporating folk music from Northern Europe, it's incorporating folk music from America.
Right, from Kentucky.
Yeah, black metal bands in Norway have been, incorporating Norwegian folk music since the early 90s, since Burzum.
Right.
It really only makes sense that if you're making American black metal, and if you want it to sound American, you incorporate American folk music, and that's what bluegrass is. When you think about it through that lens, it's like, oh yeah, I guess that does make a lot of sense. And to Austin's credit, he has made it work so well to the degree that it is the cornerstone of the sound of his project.
Right.
And this, I think, like we listened to and we talked about Kentucky before. And I have gone through and listened to Social Disservices and Collapse as well, which is the album from 2009. There's a remixed version of those two that he put out in 2013, I think. But I've listened through those, and those are good, and they're, they still feel like American black metal, but the bluegrass is not nearly so forward and so upfront in the sound as you would get when you listen to Kentucky. But this is the album, I think, where he really figured out the optimal mix between the two, and the way to make the transition between those two styles feel seamless.
Right. There are two songs on this album that are just bluegrass.
Just straight up bluegrass. One of them's instrumental, and the other one has got lyrics on it as well.
Part of a trio of songs.
Yes, and the and then Norwegian Nights as well is just a maybe a little bit more of a country song. It's a bit more downbeat than the other two bluegrass tracks. And then it leads into absolutely furious song following up after that, and
the final track
quite the second to last track, which is In Silence.
Right.
One of the things that I noted while listening to this is that compared to most of the rest of his discography, this album feels like the darkest. It feels like there's a lot more like kind of evil sounding black metal on here. It never goes full on Norwegian evil black metal. Right. But like there is something about this album that sounds a bit more foreboding than a lot of the other ones. I was not able to find the lyrics for anything on here. And that's something that has been true for a lot of Panopticon records, where you just can't find the lyrics anywhere. Right. Because Austin hasn't posted them because he doesn't want to. He wants people to get whatever they want out of the songs. But decipher them on your own if you can try. Really strain yourself to hear the vocals in the mix. But like I lost it again. Where was I at? What was I talking about? Oh no.
Panopticon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Panopticon.
Right.
But oh yeah, it feels darker. It feels more foreboding. And like a lot of the other stuff is either like overtly political or it is introspective in a way that is fairly obvious. But this just in the songwriting feels a bit more dark. And there's a lot of like moments that feel kind of melodic death metal in certain places,
but somehow in more of a minor key than melodic death metal would even be in.
I think a lot of like melodic death metal also tends to be so morose in a way that ends up being more like gothic and a bit more, in a bit less of a minor key.
You know what I feel like a lot of these songs felt like for me is if you're watching a really good, well-made indie movie, the song that's playing at the end of Act 2.
Yes.
That's how this feels like. Oh shit, everything's gone wrong. We're having so many feelings. All the shit is everywhere. Oh no. Why? Cut to black.
The cast is in their darkest moment.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me also because it feels like this is so clear of like, you can see as far as like development, songwriting development, because this is 2 years after Kentucky. And then just a year after this is when we get Autumn Eternal. And it's like, I can feel some of these riffs on this album, some of the melodies, I can feel them like wanting to turn into stuff from Autumn Eternal. There is, however, something on this record that I feel like is kind of lacking on everything that came after it. There is like an energy and an experimentation and a like, I don't know. There's just something about it that feels kind of playful and kind of not quite so. I mean, I just got done talking about how foreboding it sounds,
right?
But like,
still at the same time energetic. I think it probably has something to do with the fact that he really totally solidified and landed on the sound in Autumn Eternal, and he hadn't quite done that yet here. Yeah,
so he's still kind of playing around with it a little bit.
Yeah,
but there's something about that I really, really liked, and I love everything that has come after this. But there's something about it where it's like there is a level of kind of fun in the songwriting that I can feel, where it was like, it was clear he was kind of like trying this out and seeing if that would work. Like there's guitar solos on this that are fucking awesome and are of the type that you haven't really heard on the last couple albums. Like, I adore And Again Into the Light, but it gets a little depressing at times, which is, I mean, that's something that traditionally I like very much. But there are also, I need, some of those moments of like a fucking awesome guitar solo every once in a while.
Kind of change it up. I mean,
yeah. And like And Again in the Light has a lot of doom metal on it as well, which is, him experimenting with stuff that's maybe a bit slower, a bit less, turning down the BPM a little bit.
Sure.
But this is just so full of life. This album is, and I don't know. There's something about that I really, really kind of latched onto in a way that, like I mentioned, I've listened to this a couple of times before.
Right.
But then while I was listening to it through for the first time before we talked about this, I was just like, is this my new favorite Panopticon? It's like, and it's spurring me on to like want to re-listen through all of Autumn Eternal and oh God, the one between that one and the newest one has such a long name. Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness. There we go. Re-listen to that and re-listen to And Again in the Light and really figure out which one of these is actually my favorite. I don't know. This album slaps.
Yeah,
it does.
Of course.
For sure. I was looking up reviews and it's kind of weird where like there not a lot of like Panopticon was a known quantity in 2014, but I think they hadn't really blown up in the review space quite in the same way that they would when Autumn Eternal come out and you have publications like Pitchfork and whatnot picking it up.
They were popular with the fans, not popular with the media yet.
Yeah, it was not quite the project hadn't really entered the wider metal consciousness at the time. It was just like, oh, do you like, black metal? Here's this, guy from Kentucky that is making something really cool. And people are like, oh, yeah, that is really cool. But it hadn't really yet blown. I think like the biggest venue that I saw having reviewed it was like Sputnik. And then there was a Needle Drop episode about it as well, where Anthony Fantano talked about it. But beyond that, there was not a lot of like really big publications that talked about this album. But everyone that I did read, I only found 3 that had like numbers attached to them, so I didn't bother aggregating a score. But everyone, was very fond of it and thought at the time that this was his best work yet. And then a year later, pretty much everyone would be like, well, this one's his best work yet.
Forget that last one.
This one's the new shit. But yeah, what's your favorite song on this record?
I really like Where Mountains Pierce the Sky, the second track.
Really good.
That's a very good song.
One of my honorable mentions.
And I was actually very surprised when I first heard One Last Fire. I'm like, this is wow.
It's really good.
I found myself just zoning out. And nothing was here in front of my face anymore. I was just in that. I'm getting chills now. But I also really love and Chase the Grain.
Yeah, that's the last song. I'm terribly predictable. Oh, it's the last song and it's the longest one. Yeah, and it's okay. Kale's gonna like this one.
And it's an epic. Yeah,
and also it has like the darkest moment on the album. Like the entire middle section of the song is fucking frigid black metal. It is like probably like some of the most like truest black metal that I've heard come out of Panopticon. And then it follows it up with something, the last quarter of the song is much more, traditional. And then we have that soft
acoustic guitar,
or maybe it was banjo. I don't know. I have a little bit of trouble discerning. It was probably acoustic guitar with a slide, is probably what it was.
I think so. Yeah.
But I sometimes have trouble discerning acoustic guitar with a slide from banjo. I don't quite know the difference well enough, I think.
All right. But that was acoustic guitar the way out.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. But
or acoustic is a friend of mine.
Acoustic, yes. Acoustic. But yeah, I also in my honorable mentions I put down Pierce the Sky and also In Silence. I thought was great.
Yeah.
There's a bluegrass track called Norwegian Nights that leads into it. Sort of the build up into In Silence, which has just an absolutely just blisteringly heavy open to it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot to really love on this album, I think. And it's so weird to me now, having listened to it like 3 times over the last week. I think it would have been 4, but after I got done eating, after I got home from work today, I was like, I'm going to listen to it again. It's like, oh yeah, this album's like 75 minutes long. So I didn't have time to re-listen to everything.
Right.
But some of the concept of the album, by the way, because there's usually a little bit of a concept, is like some of the background of what was going on in his life at the time. He had taken like a big trip to Norway, which I believe is part of where the title comes from. I think he had also at that point quite very recently moved to Minnesota from Kentucky, and he had his first kid. And so he had a lot of stuff to write about, leaving Kentucky and going to Minnesota, where he still is. Though we've been talking about this because we remembered that he owns a brewery or owned a brewery with his brother-in-law, which is called Hammerheart in Lino Lakes, and their tap room closed. And I after like the news that like Hammerheart closed, and they were like, oh, we're going to try and open up something new, and we're, contracting with other breweries to make our stuff. I haven't heard anything.
No news.
I wasn't not able to find anything from 2022 stating that they, had a new property somewhere else or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know what the state of their brewing company is, but
maybe he's got other irons in the fire.
Maybe I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
And that's, that has, to my knowledge, at the very least, always been his day job, basically. Is
brewmaster.
Is as a brewmaster. So he has, I think, definitely a skill set that there's a lot of places in Minnesota that someone who's very good at brewing beer can find a job, I think.
That's true.
There's a lot of breweries in the state of Minnesota.
You can find a lot of water in Minnesota.
Yes.
I think there's more coastline in Minnesota than California.
Technically, yes, there is. But the land of 10,000 ponds.
Yeah,
really.
And they're not all lakes.
A couple hundred lakes and several thousand ponds, all of which are horrible mosquito breeding grounds. But
they also breed. I noticed on the shores of those lakes, they also breed a lot of white people.
That's just Minnesota.
Yeah,
they come up out of the water.
They do.
Oh, hey there.
Don't you know?
Oh, gosh. Oofta. We're from this part of the country, so we get to make fun of it.
Exactly. Oofta is our word.
It's oh, God.
Yeah.
We've got the Oofta pass. All right.
By the way.
Fine.
Okay.
We're done. We're moving on from that thread.
Just by the way,
real quick.
For a while there, because I look at what are the names of the songs again, and I realized that you had already said this, and I already knew this. And one of the songs is called Norwegian Nights.
Yes.
And hearing it in my head was not the song.
K.
No. It was Norwegian Nights, like Norwegian days. Yeah. So
I'm still not over that, where I can't laugh hard without coughing.
That's awesome.
Thanks, COVID. But Norwegian Nights would be as a musical would be interesting.
Sure.
I also, until recently on Dimension 20, because their current season is like doing horror versions of fairy tales, which
awesome.
For most of them, you don't really have to do that much work to,
no, it's not a stretch
to make them horrific.
Right.
But I never realized like the Arabian Nights or aka 1001 Nights.
Right.
I didn't really know anything about it other than like a couple of the stories that were included in there. Aladdin and Sinbad the Sailor and whatnot. Right. Like I knew of a couple of the stories. I didn't know the bonkers framing device of all the stories, which is this woman who is trying to like save her sister's life, and then like volunteers, like this ruler wants to like keeps on executing his wives because they're impure, and her sister's up next, and she's like, I'll take her place, but I'm going to tell you a story, and if you like the story, you'll spare my life until morning. And so she, for 1001 nights, she tells him a story every night, and he always likes them, so she gets to live another day.
That's fucked up.
That's the framing device for all of the stories in 1001 Nights. I'm sure I'm mangling it a little bit, but her name is Scheherazade,
right?
And like I didn't know any of that, and Dimension 20 introduced me to this whole thing that I had no idea about.
There you go, kids. Dimension 20.
Yes.
Give it a
listen. Maybe not kids.
Oh, well, okay.
It is.
Maybe young adults.
Young adults. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. Young adults. I think it's definitely TVMA, but not it's not HBO level of indecency or obscenity.
You know what?
There's no tits on screen.
They may say tits, but they don't show.
They
them.
may describe tits with their words.
My oldest daughter, who's 27, she kept apologizing because she was saying her normal, speech.
Yes,
the thing she would normally say in front of her 11-year-old brother.
Yes,
who is I'm sorry, I can't. And then I finally had to say, look. He spends all day in a middle school.
Yeah.
There is nothing you have to say shocking to him.
Yeah, by 11, it's fine to say it in front of them, I think.
Yeah.
I think that was generally, at the very least with my dad, how that kind of went. My mom's not a particularly sweary person, but I think by the time I was 10 or 11, my dad was like, nah, I don't care. Yeah. He doesn't care.
My dad had anger issues. So a lot of, and thankfully they came out as him swearing and breaking stuff.
Yeah,
not doing any physical damage to any people.
That's good.
Yeah,
it's always good. What are we going to listen to next? Oh, we didn't say metal. We didn't say the metal that we're giving to this album. What are you bestowing upon Roast to the North like Maskanada Chewbacca?
This gets a gold.
Yeah, this is gold. Absolutely. And like I said, it might be my new favorite Panopticon album. I don't know. I kind of chose this because it was the black sheep.
Right. It was the one you hadn't listened to as many times.
And I thought there was a reason for that. And it turns out there wasn't. Next week, what do you want to listen to?
Actually, there's a thing I don't know a whole lot about. I think I've brought most of the black metal albums that are in my repertoire, in my collection at this point. But I would really like to listen to Triarchy of the Lost Lovers
by
Rotting Christ.
Rotting Christ. Okay. Yeah. That's a band I've heard of. I don't know anything about them at all.
This is from 1996. Do you remember 1996?
Yes, distinctly. I remember 1996.
It's probably a very traumatic year for you.
Yeah, well, being born will do that. A very traumatic experience.
Yeah, you heard it right here. Being borner is very traumatic.
Yep. Hey. It's my last name. All right. So until next week's discussion of that album, why don't you go ahead and follow us on Twitter or on Facebook. Those were just for those specific words. I adopt a Southern accent.
Why are you mocking people like that?
Well, I'm not doing it to their face, so it's fine.
Such a racist.
It is usually other white people. So
yeah, that's true.
But in any case, Facebook and Twitter. I didn't do the accent that time. He ruined it. He ruined the fun little thing I was doing.
It's what I do. I'm a ruiner.
And go ahead and subscribe to our feed on whatever it is you're using to listen to us, whether it's your Apple Podcast app or whatever else it might be. Go ahead, just follow us on there.
Whatever you're using to listen to us right now.
Hey, you're just chock full of them right now.
Chock full of something.
So thanks very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ. Congratulations.